say, so this will be a very rambly type video, but it should be kind of interesting and informative. So, let me pull up the questions. Well, actually, first let me just tell you a little bit about me, especially if you're new. I'm Sarah Lavender, and I live in Mexico City. About 9 months ago, me and my partner decided to pursue our creative hobbies full-time, but we weren't earning enough to be able to do that in the States, and also my partner, his family is from Mexico City, so we decided to move to Mexico City, not only to kind of pursue our dreams, that's cheesy, but like try this alternative lifestyle, but also learning another language, specifically Spanish, has been a bucket list life goal type item for me. So I was studying on my own when I lived in the States, and it just wasn't happening. I wasn't learning that much, and I wasn't really improving. I was doing like Duolingo, and I bought like some study books, and I was trying to practice, but I wasn't learning that fast. And so I was like, I truly think the number one way to learn a language is obviously to move to a country that speaks that language. So that was another factor. Another factor was getting to know my partner's family and like a bunch of other more personal reasons for why we selected Mexico City. Yeah, and so, 9 months ago, me and my partner and our two cats drove from Texas all the way down, all 20 hours of driving to Mexico City. We took my car so we could take the cats. That's really important to us, and we're really glad we have our cats with us. But having the car here is kind of a pain in the butt, but maybe I'll talk about that later. What else? Yeah, so that's kind of the story. I was living in Texas beforehand, and I quit my job at the same time that we decided to move down here. So a lot of like really big life changes that I've been dealing with, and yeah, I'd like to kind of share with you guys and answer some questions. So let's get to that. Okay, so let me pull this up. Okay. So Natalie asked this a long time ago. Natalie Palhares, who is from Brazil, asked me, how do you deal with being away from your family and friends, and also the language barrier? I'm from Rio and often think about moving to Buenos Aires, but I don't speak Spanish and feel like I would miss my family too much. So, everybody has like a different relationship with their family and like how much they see their family. And in my case, I was already living in a different state from my family, and so I would already only see them maybe 2 times a year, if that. So it's not much different. I see my family as often as I did. Not a big deal. My friends, on the other hand, that has been hard. I am making friends here, and I did move here with somebody, so I'm not alone, and that makes a big difference, but I do miss my friends, but I don't know, it hasn't been a terrible struggle for me. I do call them pretty often and FaceTime and things like that, and I've actually had friends visit already, so I'm like a pretty introverted person. I don't need a ton of social interaction all the time, and also like a lot of my friends are online as well, so like nothing changed there. So it's really just like a personal thing. I don't know how to say it other than that, but just like, yeah. The language barrier, on the other hand, is simultaneously easier than who spoke fluent Spanish. It would be a completely different story than if I moved here by myself without being fluent. I mean, a lot of people here in the upper class speak English. It's not a rule, but if you go to the nice areas, people speak English. In the more working class areas, they don't. I would say if you spoke no Spanish, it would be hard to be here. You know, it's hard to say. Everything's so subjective, you know. If you live in a neighborhood where a lot of people are expats and speak English, you're gonna have a fine time. If you live in a working class neighborhood, it's gonna be a different experience. You're gonna have to learn very quickly and be not shy and not be embarrassed about like miming things and like pointing and kind of making a fool of yourself. But I will say though that I am learning Spanish so quickly here that I'm at a point finally that I feel comfortable being by myself, and I feel like I can deal with most situations in Spanish, in the sense that like I can understand really well. My speaking still isn't incredible. That's kind of the most common thing with learning a language, is that like you start processing things very quickly, but like speaking is still difficult. That happens with like a lot of like kids whose parents speak a foreign language, and the kid can understand them but replies in English. It's a very common thing in the United States. That's kind of me right now, I would say. Like, I can talk, but I kind of sound like a 5-year-old. But I understand really well at this point. So, what else can I say about that? The only thing I think is the most difficult thing are phone calls. I like basically can't make phone calls to like telephone companies and internet companies because they don't always have an English speaker, and understanding over the phone and trying to communicate with only your voice. I'm not at that level yet, so that would be really hard, I think, if you were to move to a new country that doesn't have that much English or that much of your native language. Okay, let's move on. Have you had any good food that you've never tried before getting to Mexico? Of course, so much. I've never tried mole. I've never tried chilaquiles. I've never tried. Pretty much, I wasn't a big Mexican food eater, and so because I lived in Tex-Mex, I ate Tex-Mex. So I wasn't really used to like Central Mexican cuisine, and so I've tried a lot of new things here. It's been really fun. How friendly are the Mexican community when they have foreigners visiting and living with them? Okay, because Mexico City is still very much in COVID, like regulations and things like that, I don't interact that much with like communities that I don't know. I can only say that like I've had good experiences. I wouldn't say like above or below like what I've experienced in the US. I would say people are generally pretty like interested to talk to me because I'm a foreigner, if that makes sense. And they're like, wow, you moved down here. You know, they're interested in that. I have had people be frustrated that I don't speak fluent Spanish, not like openly, but just kind of like they're flustered, I'm flustered, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah, I think this is something I can talk about more once the country opens up more and I start attending events and things like that. Yeah, but like I've been getting to know like my partner's family and stuff like that, which is really nice. The family unit is so important here. Mexico. It is so like tightly knit and just like totally opposite from my American family. My American family is tiny, 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 like 5 people. That's it, 5 people in my whole family that I am like, who are my family. And here, you know, it's like family units of like 30, 40, 50 people who have like family gatherings every month, you know. It's cool. It's different, but it's cool. Let's answer another question. Okay, so this one isn't about Mexico, but what did you do before content creating full time, and what got you started in making ASMR videos? By Michaela. I was an engineer. I was a mechanical engineer. That may surprise people. I think people don't think that like engineers and like creativity and stuff can work, but I don't find that true at all. Everybody's like a mixture of all kinds of things. What got me started in making ASMR videos is I watch so much ASMR. I watch it every day, and I've been watching it for like 8 years now. And I guess just like at a point when you consume that much of one thing, you kind of naturally think like, what if I tried? What if I made videos similar to what I like watching? And like, so that's kind of what happened, you know? I just love ASMR so much, and I thought it would be fun. I never expected it to be my job, not in a million years. If you like watch my first few videos, I'm just like this, like, I'm using like a webcam, and I'm just like playing around with it. So it's really cool that, you know, we've come this far. Okay, more questions. I'm going kind of fast because there's a lot and I want to be able to answer most of them. Okay, curious to know your healthy lifestyle tips, exercise, sleep, what you eat, and the food culture differences between Mexico and the US. I am not qualified to give healthy lifestyle tips, but I would say that in terms of exercise, have fun with it. I don't go to a gym. I only rock climb and boulder because exercise has to be fun for me. So if you find a way to make exercise fun for you, like fitness will come naturally. Yeah. Food culture differences between Mexico and the US. I'm sorry for that buzzing noise. It's like in the building. I have no control over it. Okay, so in the US, there is an incredible amount of food variety. In the US, in a small town in the US, you can get Chinese, Mexican, Thai, you know, like Greek food. And, you know, it's just like, and they're almost always like made by the people from that country. It's just like an incredibly diverse immigrant country, right? Here in Mexico, it is less diverse than the US, and therefore there is less food variety. I'm in the biggest city in Mexico, so there is more variety here than some of the smaller cities, but even then I struggle finding in my neighborhood like the same variety of food. It's mainly Mexican food and like South American food. And a lot of the foreign food is a lot more expensive. For example, Middle Eastern food is very expensive here. So, in my experience, everything, disclaimer, is in my experience. I'm sure people can have totally different experiences, like if you live in Condesa or Roma, and I mean, your food experience is going to be completely different than if you live in Tláhuac. You know what I mean? It's like totally subjective, but it's affordable. And it's just like, you get like a soup, rice with veggies, a meal, and then usually a dessert, and fruit water. All of that for like $4, $3 sometimes, even cheaper. And in the States, you know, it's like a burger for $4. So yeah, that's my little thing about food variety. Let's see. What are some of the small things that you've enjoyed about Mexico that you didn't think you would? This one's hard to answer off the cuff, but the food, the city itself is really different. I've been here before. Before I moved here, I've been here like 3 times. But living here, I'm just constantly impressed by the weather. Perfect weather. Literally perfect. 70 degrees. Like most of the year. In the rainy season, you get like an hour of rain in the afternoon. It's just really nice. And at night, it's almost always cool. It's because it's really high altitude. It's almost a mountain city. It's not really, but it's got like volcanoes around it, and it's like, you know, really high elevation, so it's like dry and cold. It's nice. So I've enjoyed that. I've enjoyed like the greenery in the city. I've enjoyed yeah, the food. I don't know. Sorry, that's not a very good answer. Okay. Do you notice a difference in terms of speed or quality in the internet service between the US and Mexico? This sounds like a question for somebody who's thinking of moving here. Internet is more expensive here to get the same level of quality that you get in the States, but generally you can get the same level of quality that you get in the States. It's just more expensive. You know, in Mexico City, it's a metropolis. It's huge. It's bigger than New York City. So of course you're gonna find areas that have like good business, high quality level Wi-Fi. Also, Mexico City has, for the most part, like city-wide Wi-Fi. It's like one of the only, no, that's not even a true fact. It is one of the only cities with like public Wi-Fi in the like kind of nicer touristy areas. It's not the whole city because it's gigantic, but like mainly the center metro like area. The core of the city has public Wi-Fi, which is really nice for visiting, and you can almost get by with having no cell plan, because you can like access so much public Wi-Fi. So I was really impressed by that. That's another small thing from that last question that I appreciate that I didn't think I would. Okay. Are your Mexican friends and acquaintances curious about what you do? How do you explain to them what ASMR is in Spanish? That's a really funny question. Because it is something I deal with all the time. Basically, if they are an acquaintance who I don't feel like getting all the way into it with them and explaining it in Spanish, I'll explain that I have like a meditation YouTube channel, because like explaining what ASMR is difficult to somebody who's like never heard of it and like never like can't really understand what it is. And so I'll say it's like a meditation / relaxation channel, and usually they're not curious past that point, but if they are, I'll like get more into detail about how it's like whispering and like soothing and focused on nice noises. Some people think it's weird, especially like the older generation. Like my partner's mom is so funny. She's like, in her little Mexican accent, she's like, "This is Sarah. She has an AMSR channel," and like she doesn't know what it is. It's really cute. What else? But yeah, I kind of just frame it as meditation, relaxation. it's pretty funny me trying to explain what it is, but like people think it's cool, which is nice, especially like the younger generation. They're like, oh, you're like a full-time YouTuber, that's fun. And yeah, so yeah, how I explain to them what it is in Spanish: meditación, susurros, whispers, meditation, just like keywords. I used to be really shy about it. Actually, I used to be kind of embarrassed because, you know, like objectively, it's kind of a weird thing to be into, you know, and to make to like the general public. But now I've explained it so many times and I'm like, yeah, like this is what I do for a job. What meal do you miss most from the US? And what meal do you really enjoy in Mexico that you didn't know about before you moved there? What meal I miss? I wouldn't say a specific meal, but I really miss Indian food. Just like good, high quality Indian food. I have not found that here yet. So, and what meal do you really enjoy in Mexico that you didn't know about? Probably mole, which is like a chocolate spicy sauce that usually you have like chicken in or something. I love mole. That's why I liked Oaxaca so much when I visited. Okay. Any tips on learning Spanish? So this one's kind of hard to answer. I would say the number one tip is, unless you are an extremely driven person and extremely good at discipline and studying on your own, you need a tutor. Like, you need a tutor. You need a tutor, or you need to go to classes. Like cheap community college classes, or like a language learning school. I know they're pricey, but in my opinion, you are never going to get to a fluency that you want unless you get a tutor. You just need somebody to practice with multiple times a week, or at least once a week. Someone who's going to correct you, someone who can explain things to you. Like, okay, I'm coming from the point of view of somebody whose partner speaks Spanish, and you'd think that that's all I need. I just talk with him. But there's a problem there in the sense that we practice together, but it's not like that fun for either of us, because I speak like a 5-year-old and I can't communicate like the way an adult can. So our conversations are like, today I want to go to the store, and you know what I mean? It's like basic communication levels. I mean, I'm a little bit better than that now. This was more a problem when I lived in the States trying to practice with him. And on his end, it's like he's talking to a 5-year-old, you know? It's like, it's not fun. It's hard to like discipline ourselves to do that. Vocabulary is easier to practice, but like full conversations are hard, and you need, you know, I don't know, that's my advice, is like, if you pay for a tutor, it'll keep you accountable and you'll learn fast. But I know that's not accessible to everybody, so I guess I would and like learning certain words. And again, I'm not fluent yet, so take this with a grain of salt. I actually think I'm learning slower than some other people would in my situation. They say you have to do it every day, and even though I live here, if I don't leave the house, I don't always do it every day, so yeah. Oh, another good tip is follow like Spanish meme pages, because then you kind of get slang and you kind of get like practice in a fun way. So okay, differences you've noticed in the US versus in Mexico with COVID and vaccinations. Okay, I'm not going to talk too much about this one, but Mexico is very good about mask usage. Mask usage is still required here in the city. Vaccinations are rolling out slower, but still doing pretty well. Like, vaccinations are like going well. Not anything like the US, obviously, but yeah. Yeah, that's kind of all I have to say on that. In Mexico, most restaurants have a very large outdoor dining area, if not the whole restaurant being outdoors. So they adapted pretty easily to outdoor dining. Yeah. What assumptions do Mexicans have of you when they find out you're American? I have no idea. I mean, they don't tell me. Maybe, like, they're probably curious, like, what side of the political spectrum I'm on. They're probably curious or making assumptions about, like, I mean, it is a fact that the US is a wealthier country than Mexico. So I would say the most common assumption is that I am extremely wealthy, which is not true in terms of American income, but here it is. I mean, I wouldn't say extremely, but like the average, or the minimum wage here is $8 a day, and in the United States, it's like $8 an hour, so it's just like a totally different scale. So that's like a common misconception, not misconception even, just like a common assumption that Americans are wealthy. I don't know. Okay, what's the best meal you've had in Mexico? And why didn't you FedEx me some? Says Charles. Not to keep repeating it, but mole that I had in Oaxaca was the best that I've had. What did your friends and family say when you told them you were moving to Mexico? Okay, this is funny. I thought my mom would freak out. I thought she'd be like, that's dangerous, you better be careful, like, you shouldn't do this. But she was like, yeah, okay. She was unbothered. Yeah. Most of my friends thought it was cool. I think I'm pretty lucky to have a pretty open-minded group of friends and family, so they were all like, yeah, be safe, you know, be careful, but have fun. So I think the bigger thing for most people was that I was quitting my job, and less that I was moving to Mexico. They're like, you're gonna quit your engineering job to whisper on YouTube. And I'm like, yeah. No, but my family was cool with it, which was really nice. It made the whole thing like, but I don't know if you've gotten the vibe already, but I'm pretty independent from my family and like from their opinions, and like I love my family, but if my parents were like, you are not gonna do that, I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm an adult. I don't know. I know some people are very tied into their family, but yeah, so that was cool. Okay. I think this will be the last question because I am kind of running out of time, but are you fluent in Spanish? Did you have any culture shock? Did you move to Mexico by yourself? Okay, this is actually a lot of questions. Let me answer a few of them. No, I'm not fluent. I'm about a B1 level. So once again, I can communicate and I understand really well, but my speaking needs work. I can read really well as well. I can read almost everything. I mean, not everything. I can't read novels, but like messages from people, I can handle that. Did you have any culture shock? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Just because the infrastructure is so different here, things just work slower here. For example, if you want to have someone install your internet, they will probably show up late. They might not show up at all. They might show up the next day, and then it'll take 3 days after that for like your internet to kick in. Once again, this is my experience, but it is something that my partner's family told me about. They're like, you have to be patient. It's just different. The infrastructure is just different. So, yeah, culture shocks. I mean, I don't want to, this is going to be hard to describe, but the level of poverty you see in many parts of the country here is definitely a culture shock. It makes me, I don't even want to get into it. You know, it's such a strange experience to be coming from like a more privileged country and seeing extreme poverty that you're not really used to seeing in the States. It's humbling. It makes you feel like almost ashamed of yourself. Not yourself, but just like that there is such a difference in life between countries. It's really surreal. But you get that when you travel, you know. If you travel to countries, you know, lesser developed countries. But yeah, so that's a culture shock. What else? The police here. Oh my god, you guys. I hate the police here, and I'm not even gonna like try to cushion that statement at all. We have been pulled over and like extorted 3 times now, I think. I'll tell you one story really quickly because it's very interesting. We got pulled over by the police who was trying to extort us for some stupid thing. And this random pedestrian who was walking by stopped and came up to us and was like, this guy's not a traffic cop, he can't give you a ticket. And the cop was like, oh, I was just warning them, like, I wasn't actually gonna give them a ticket. And he was like threatening to impound our car. And he's like pretending like he wasn't this guy, and the guy was like, okay, well, just so you guys know, he can't give you a ticket. And he like walked away, and the cop was like so angry, and the guy just like saved our life for no reason. It was so nice. I got heated there. Sorry if you're using this for sleep. But yeah, I hate the police here. I would, you know, it's just like bribes are expected in terms of the police, and I hate it. I feel really unsafe around them. And like that's kind of how everyone feels here too. Like nobody likes the police. They're just bullies. Anyways, okay, one more question. Favorite Mexican drinks? I drink a lot of agua fresca here, which is just like fruit water. The fruit juice and like the fruit and the produce are so cheap and easily available here, and such a part of the food culture that I eat like a lot more fruit than I used to, especially for breakfast. Also, soda is extremely popular here, and I don't drink soda, and so that's a little like, I'm not a big fan of that, obviously. But yeah, like Coca-Cola is huge here, but the fruit juice is incredible. Yeah, that's kind of a lame last question, but I will try to answer more questions in the comments. So if you want to like leave any more, I'll try to answer as many as I can. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope I answered some of the more you know, questions, common questions that people had. Oh, I will answer one more in my head that I get a lot of about safety. In Mexico City, in the center of the city, it's pretty safe. It's like, I feel safe, but you know, it's a big city. I'd feel safe in New York City, because I've never lived in a city this big. I don't really understand how to not get lost, how to like figure out what neighborhoods are good and which are bad. You know, it's more of like me being a country bumpkin and not, you know, and also not speaking the language. It makes things a little bit scarier. But no, it's actually like safer than most people think it is. Yeah, it's kind of a complicated question, right? I would say like the biggest things I'm scared of are not like murder, but like pickpocketing. Yeah, so safety, I feel pretty safe. I don't go out alone at night. Some neighborhoods are extremely safe and wealthy, etc., and some are not, you know, so you kind of like learn how to be